Hello and good morning, MYM Insiders. How's everybody doing today? This is Rich Harshaw, and we're here for what I believe is our last Insider webinar of the year. So thank you for participating and attending this meeting. We'll, of course, be starting up again in January. We'll be publishing our first quarter webinars within about a week or so from now. So check your calendar. You'll notice that they're not on there right now. We're formalizing that schedule. January and February is always really tough because there's a lot of travel involved for me due to speaking obligations. But we will have that formalized and on the website, like I said, within about a week. So today we're going to finish our webinar that we started last month, which was, excuse me, not trying to die on you there. The Psychology of Marketing Part 1. If you missed that for whatever reason, feel free to go log into our online portal and you can watch that webinar and you can get the first, gosh, I think we went through about 7 or 8 different principles on Part 1. Today we're only going to go through, I think, 5 principles, spend a little bit of time on some of these, but at the end, I think that this webinar is going to go pretty darn quick. So instead of the typical 45 to 50 minutes, we may only end up going 30 to 40 minutes. And usually when I say that, we end up going a full hour, so who knows. Let's see what happens when we get into this. But the real idea here is the psychology of marketing. We're trying to get inside people's brains, and if we can figure out how people think and how they process information and how they interact with their own inner consciousness as they're making decisions, then it helps us a lot when understanding how to approach them from a marketing standpoint. What we say, how we say it, when we say it, the style in which we say it, has a great impact on the way that they're thinking, or I should say probably the opposite. The way they think has a great impact on those things. So with that being said, we're going to jump straight into one of my favorite marketing principles. Well, let me tell you what we're going to do. Accelerated discontentment. That's one of my favorite ones. Frame of reference conditioning, logic versus emotion, don't talk to strangers, and anticipated reaction. Some of the 5 we're going to cover today. We'll spend a little bit of time here up front on this accelerated discontentment. And the idea here is to make people feel less satisfied with their current situation by hitting them with a lot of repetition from a marketing standpoint. It's what I call Chuck E. Cheese syndrome. Now, my kids are getting a little bit older now. My youngest is now 10 years old. But when my kids were younger in that Chuck E. Cheese era, every once in a while, one of them would get the idea in their brain that they wanted to go to Chuck E. Cheese. And then what was it, of course? Dad, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? Now, they knew better than to ask my wife because she would never take them to Chuck E. Cheese because she'd rather burn the place down than step foot inside. But understandably so. So they'd come to me, Dad, can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? Can we go to Chuck E. Cheese? And after a while, it would just become annoying. And at some point, you would start to threaten them. If you ask me to go to Chuck E. Cheese one more time, I promise you that we will never go to Chuck E. Cheese again as long as you live. And they knew that all they had to do was keep begging and badgering, and they would eventually wear down the dad. And at some point, the pain involved with going to Chuck E. Cheese was less than the pain involved with simply listening to the begging and pleading. So the idea here is this. There's a principle that says that having a lot of repetition in your marketing makes people finally more likely to respond, and that seems obvious, but what I'm going to do is explain to you with this concept, this chart, accelerated discontentment, and show you why it works that way, okay? I'm going to show you scientifically how it works and why it works, and I think it's going to make a huge difference for you, so we'll get into this. Keeping your topic at the forefront of their consciousness, it's true that out of sight really is out of mind, so we've got to keep ourselves front of consciousness. When they become ready to buy, you're the obvious choice, okay? Become the shoulder to cry on. So if you go to the oldest and goofiest analogy that I have in my repertoire, it actually is played out a lot in movies and television shows. And I think if you watch Spider-Man, yeah, that thing's just going to keep coming up there. I'm not sure how to deal with that. Get rid of it as best we can. If you watch Spider-Man, you see this story, which is the story of the boy and the girl that grow up together since first grade or kindergarten, and by the time she gets to be in high school, she's popular, she's the captain of the cheerleaders, and he is just sort of more of a nerdy science math type kid, but they're still good friends, and they live next door, and she goes on to be real popular. She goes out with the captain of the football team, and they're the hot couple in the high school. Again, think about the movies and stuff. You've seen this, right? And what always happens in those movies? Eventually, the captain of the football team doesn't treat her very well. She gets sad. She's upset. Anytime she has a problem, who does she run to talk to? And it's always, of course, the nerdy kid from next door that's her true friend that she's known her whole life. And in fact, in the end of the story, they always end up falling in love, because true love is based on consistency and frequency and being there and longevity and all these other loyalty type factors, not just simply the good looks. So in the analogy, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, okay, we're trying to sell something to somebody, and in order to make that happen, we've got to be that shoulder to cry on. We've got to let our prospects know that we've got something better, we've got something different, that we're here, that we're available, that our value proposition is better than whatever they may currently be doing or whoever they may be currently using, so that when they become ready to buy, they know that you're the one to go to. So let's take a look at this. This is the accelerated discontentment chart. Now, on the left-hand side, you see discontentment, and it's a little bit counterintuitive because it's good on the bottom and it's bad on the top. So in other words, if the discontentment level is low, that means that they're in bliss. Everything's great. They're not having any problems as it relates to whatever topic is being discussed. And hang on, I got to make sure that we're still doing our deal here. Having a minor technological breakdown here possibly. Let me just double check this. Okay, nope, we're still good. Okay, so as you get to the top, you'll see it says I've had it. Now this is the line where theoretically you just can't stand it anymore. Let me put this line on here to show you how this works. Okay. So here's what you're seeing. Is you're seeing a line that represents somebody's level of discontentment over time. The horizontal axis represents time, okay? And each of these tick marks, let's say, represents a month. So here's what you'll see. They start out here on the left in sort of a almost bliss, doing good, and then over time they start to get more and more discontent. And then here's what happens. Whoops, going the wrong way. Here's what happens. Okay, come on, having a little technical problems here, but here's what happens. You see each of these upward bumps here, 1, 2, 3, and then finally over here on the right-hand side, 4. Each of these areas is what we call an incident that occurs in somebody's life that causes them to feel discontent as it relates to something. Now, think about your business and what kinds of things would make people discontent towards whatever it is you sell. Let's say that, for instance, you sell kitchen remodeling. And what kinds of things would make somebody feel discontent about their kitchen? And stated differently, make them want to potentially remodel their kitchen. It could be something as simple as having a dinner party and finding that there wasn't enough room to prepare all the food, and they get frustrated because the kitchen really just isn't doing the trick. Or it could be that the appliances are old and they're not functioning properly, and it starts to become a problem. Or it could be that the mother-in-law comes to visit and she makes some snide comment about how old and outdated the kitchen is. Or it could be that you've got one of your children is getting married, you're going to have people over to the house for a big party, and you're feeling like the kitchen is a bit outdated and you'd really like to do something. You've got this event that's coming up that is driving your, in this case, discontentment with your current kitchen. And these different types of discontentment events register with different levels of discontentment. So over here on the left-hand side, you see this registers somewhere about maybe a 3 or a 4 on the discontentment level, and then maybe down here to a 2. And then you see here it goes down to bliss. You say, well, why would it go down here into this happy level? And that may be because you did something to fix the problem. So maybe you went out and bought some new appliances, and that sort of soothed the problem for a while until your mother-in-law came over and made this comment about your ugly kitchen. The appliances are nice, but the flooring and the cabinets are out of date. And then maybe over here, this represents having your son's wedding and people coming over, and you don't want to be humiliated by this disgusting kitchen again, right? You see how this works? And here's what you'll notice is that whenever a peak is hit based on somebody's incident that occurs in their life, it always tends to go back down towards the zero, the fine, the fine line, which I call hunky-dory. Everything's fine, not good, not bad, everything's just fine. I don't really even need to talk about it because it's fine. And even when they start going into this section down here where they're happy, it eventually goes back towards zero. Why? Because over time, people cannot maintain strong emotions in any direction, whether they're positive or negative. It's like when your kid comes home with a bad grade on his math test and you get upset, you take his phone, you start grounding from the computer or from hanging out with friends or whatever it is, and you're very angry or at least upset or at least concerned. But over time, those concerns and those angers, they sort of go away. It's just hard to remain emotionally in an inflamed state, whether it's positive or negative. Now, here's what happens. Whoops. We put these triangles at the bottom. These are pink triangles that represent a marketing touch. And here's what you need to notice about the marketing touch. Two things. Number one, there is a certain frequency, which in this case is about once per month. And also, even more importantly, there is a consistency. So these are the two words that I want you to write down, frequency and consistency. These pink triangles represent a frequent and consistent touch to this prospect. It could be through their mailbox. It could be through a magazine. It could be through television or radio or newspaper, any kind of media, any kind of advertising, any kind of reaching out. But here's what it's doing. It's a proactive advertising reach, touching that person, letting them know, here's who we are, here's how we're different, here's how we're better. If those messages are laced with identity, they become even more powerful. And then here's what happens. This pink line represents an upward push of the discontentment line, because over time, and you'll notice that this line separates more as it gets farther to the right, which represents the more frequency and consistency of contact you have with this person over time, the more you will modify their thinking about that, whatever that is. Again, if it's a kitchen, you'll notice here that after about, 1, 2, 3, 4 months, we have this level 3 incident. And instead of a level 3, it's about a level 3.5. And then 6 months in, this level 2 incident becomes maybe a level 3 incident. Why? Because they see, based on my marketing communication with them, that there's another option that's better, that's different. It's the shoulder to cry on. And finally, when we get over here to this level 10, you see that these two lines come together. And you might say, well, why don't they get to I've had it sooner? And the reason is because we don't have enough frequency to push them sort of over the line. Now, that's where this comes in. Now, we've got these green triangles. These green triangles represents, from a marketing standpoint, even higher frequency. And you'll notice that the consistency is no different. We're still staying very consistent, but we're also now hitting them with a higher level of frequency. So our message is going to hit them more often. It's going to sink in. It's going to have more chances to affect their thinking. And therefore, it's going to push their discontentment up even higher. It's going to accelerate their discontentment. And here's what that looks like. So now the first event, the first incident, which normally the black line registered at 3, now registers maybe a 6. And now the second incident, which used to register as a, the 2, now is probably a 6. And now you'll see the third incident, which originally registered as about a 5 or 6, and then a 7 or an 8, now hits the 10 mark. I've had it. Why? Because the consistency and, more importantly, the high frequency of my marketing message has allowed them to see there's somebody else, there's something different, there's something better. And now when this incident occurs, they are hypersensitive to this topic because you've been feeding them information all this time, right? Now, here's the key thing that you have to understand and realize as a marketer. This is critical. Pausing for dramatic effect. Here's what it is. You have no control whatsoever of when those incidences will occur in your prospects' lives. You don't know, if you're a kitchen remodeler, when a given homeowner will feel humiliated by a mother-in-law's comment, or when they will try to prepare something for a dinner date and won't have enough kitchen space, or when they have a wedding that they're trying to host a bunch of people and they need to update the kitchen. You don't have any control over those things. And sometimes I think arrogantly or audaciously or whatever the word is, I think we try to assume that we have some sort of control. And really, the best that we can do, and you can see it clearly on this chart, is we can start to influence their thinking and get them more interested in changing or using us or coming towards us. But we still have to wait for these trigger events, these incidences, before they're actually going to take action. Does that make sense? Now, with that background, let's talk about some of the ramifications of this. The first one, of course, is accelerated discontentment. You make their current choices seem worse and worse, and you offer the shoulder to cry on, like we've already talked about. Here's three other things, though. First of all, you win by forfeit. Why? Because chances are good that other competitors aren't putting nearly as much effort into this. In other words, by simply showing up again and again and again and again and again, and that high frequency, and if you compare that to your competitors who are likely far less or non-existent on that scale, you win because you're the one that's got the best, loudest voices, like the kid crying to go to Chuck E. Cheese all the time, right? Consistency credit. This is an interesting concept. Consistency in marketing effort equates to consistency in service delivery. In other words, people will assume that if you're the kind of company that has the wherewithal to continually, frequently, consistently hit you with a message, then you're probably the kind of company that has the wherewithal to consistently perform on actually fulfilling whatever it is that you sell. There's a correlation there that's positive. So that's good also. And then finally, what I call Oscar Robertson syndrome. This is a little bit of an obscure reference, but here's what it means, that a complete history, regardless of however impressive it is, isn't nearly as impressive as the ongoing here and now. Now, let me tell you what this means. Oscar Robertson was a great basketball player in the 1950s in the National Basketball Association. He was widely regarded to be one of the best players of all time. Now, the reason that you don't know about him and you haven't heard about him is because he played so long ago that you never had a chance to see him. He played in the pre-Sports Center era, and most of the people that liked him are really old or dead by now. Okay, if you were, if you were in your 40s or 50s back in the 1950s, you're probably a goner by now. Well, what does all that mean? Here's what that means. It means that now, from a basketball standpoint, the top names are LeBron James. Even Michael Jordan has been gone for a while, but he did play in the Sports Center era. And people have a chance to see them, and they assume that they're better simply because of proximity. It's more of a proximity bias kind of a situation. Let me tell you something about Oscar Robertson. He's the only player in the history of professional basketball that averaged a triple-double. A triple-double means you have double figures, means 10 or more in three different categories: points, assists, and rebounds. It's unheard of. LeBron James doesn't really even come close. Oscar Robertson was the only person that ever averaged a triple-double for an entire season, and truth be told, he averaged a triple-double for his first 4 seasons combined in the NBA. If that happened now, okay, if this guy Oscar Robertson dropped out of space and into the NBA and averaged a triple-double for 4 consecutive years in the year 2015 through 2019, I'm telling you, he would be on every commercial. He would be the greatest thing since sliced bread. He would make LeBron James look like chump change. But you've never heard of him. And this is the whole point. If you're consistent and frequent with your message, you are going to be the LeBron James. You're going to be on Sports Center. You're going to be the one that people have seen, and the proximity bias is going to allow them to believe that you're better than all of your competitors simply because they see you more often, okay? So this is why saying it often and getting frequent contact with your prospects makes such a dramatic impact. It's easy to sit there and say, okay, well, it makes sense logically that if we say it a lot, that it's going to make a difference. What I'm trying to help you understand is why it helps make a difference, so that when you put the dollars and the energy and the effort into that activity, you can feel more confident and comfortable that what you're doing is going to work. Now, you might say, well, how long is it going to take to work? And the answer is, it's going to take as long as it takes. If you start now, it's a lot better chance that you're going to get somebody to buy from you next year than if you don't start until 2 years from now, right? So anyway, think about that. It's an interesting concept, and in my opinion, extraordinarily powerful if you can understand this, okay? Next, Frame of reference conditioning. Wow, this is a great concept, okay? Absolutely necessary when the amount of the purchase is likely going to be more than the prospect was expecting. Now, think about this for a minute. In what types of products lend themselves to the amount of the purchase being a lot more than people were expecting? Well, I can think of a couple. One of them, remodeling, okay, right? People think, okay, I need to get windows. And then they have this little conversation in their brain. It goes like this. Okay, I wonder how much it's going to cost to do this remodeling. And then you get these windows done, and they think, okay, I don't know how much a window costs. I've seen them at Home Depot. They're like a couple $100, but they've got to be installed, so that's probably another $50. I don't know. These windows might cost, gosh, $300 a piece. What you don't know is that when you walk in with your $750 a piece window and the prospect has a thought in their brain that they're $300 per window, that's a gigantic Grand Canyon-sized chasm. And if you don't have a good plan for crossing that and bridging that gap, then you're going to be in bad shape. You're going to be in bad shape because what you're going to do is you're going to walk in, you're going to go through your warm-up, you're going to go through your company story, you're going to talk about how your windows are so awesome, and then you're going to drop the price on them, and at the end of that price being dropped on them, you're going to give them effectively, realistically, in a real-world situation, from the time you first give them the price to the time you expect to close the deal, it's probably somewhere in the neighborhood of about 5 to 12 minutes. And you're trying to cross that gap, and it's hard to do, okay? You can't expect them to go from X dollars in their brain to 3X or 2X in an hour. You just can't. Pre-positioning materials are a way to begin to condition them. Pre-positioning materials including what? Number 1, your website. Number 2, product reports. Number 3, contractor standards guides. Number 4, emails that you send before the meeting happens. Okay? This is what we're trying to do. We're trying to help them understand who we are, how we're different, why we're better, and what the value is. The value of the product report specifically is to help them understand what factors go into a quality product. The contractor standards guide is to help them understand what factors go into a quality company and service experience. Okay? So you take these two things together, a product report and a contractor standards guide, and they see, wow, these are the things that you need in order to have a good experience with a contractor, and this is what goes into a quality product. These two things together can be very powerful, okay? Closing ratios go up, dumb, broke prospects go down. If you ask your salespeople, why didn't you close? The answer frequently will be the prospect was dumb and broke. And you know what? Sometimes that's true. You do run into the dumb, broke prospects. But more likely, you run into people that are qualified that could buy from you, but they get scared off by sticker shock because the amount that you were asking for was a lot more than they expected. Now, generally, sticker shock is not manifest with, you know, big bulging eyes and a mouth wide open with a surprised look on their face. They usually try to go poker face, right, and try to hide that surprised look, and they try to have some sort of an answer like, oh, well, my brother is my financial advisor, and I have to run this by him, as if somebody's got to run purchasing windows past their brother. But they're just grasping for straws of an excuse so that they don't have to tell you, wow, that's a lot more than I thought. Now, here's another thing you need to keep in mind on this. It's also not that they can't afford it. It's that they simply have, it was more than they thought. Now, here's another element that you can use to reduce this. And I've told this story a bunch of times, and I'm going to tell it again right now. This is the story of financing as a tool for you in your arsenal of helping to lower price resistance. And the story is that this goes back a couple of years now, I guess maybe 2 or 3 years at this point. But there was a period of time where we switched health insurance companies, and as a result, we lost our dental insurance with the previous health insurance company, and the new health insurance that we bought did not have a dental plan wrapped into it. So we didn't have the dental insurance for something like a year and a half, and my wife started bugging me after a year, hey, we got to get this done, we got to get this done, and so I helped her, we figured it out. We finally got dental insurance, but it had been like a year and a half since any of my kids, 6 of them, had been to the dentist. So we finally show up at the dentist, and what do we discover? Well, out of 8 people in the family, my wife and myself and 6 kids, there was about $8,000 worth of things that needed to be done, including wisdom teeth that needed to be pulled, and tooth extractions and fillings and all this junk. They wanted to go into my mouth, take out my old fillings from when I was a kid and replace them with new ones. Otherwise, my face was going to explode or something. I'm not sure quite what that was all about. So anyway, my wife comes home after we'd all visited the dentist, and the dentist had created a cumulative report and said, look, it's going to be $8,200. My wife dropped that number on me, and the very first thing I said was, okay, whatever the most critical services are, those are the ones that we need to get done. Everything else can wait. Now, this was not a function of not having $8,000. I do have $8,000 that I could spend on dental work if I wanted to, but man, I really didn't want to spend $8,000 on dental work. I was like, geez, this is more than my budget really wants to handle right now. And then she said, well, look, there's this 0% 12 months same as interest plan that they have. And I said, fantastic. And I think it was a $750 a month payment for something like 11 months. And we went ahead and did all of it. Instead of waiting, we did all of the work up front. And I think this is a fantastic tool for overcoming price resistance. So here's what we want to do. 2 things. Number 1, we want to do a frame of reference conditioning. We want to do some price conditioning. We want to help people understand the value of doing business with a high-quality contractor like ourselves and doing business with companies that sell high-quality products like you sell. And also, we want to start to let them understand that there are options to make this less expensive. My favorite way to do it is very, very simple. Is when you go into the meeting, when you first sit down, you go through your warm-up, whatever you do, but when you first start talking shop, you say, okay, Mr. Johnson, let me ask you this. What were you thinking in terms of a monthly payment for the windows that you're looking at today? And this question might catch Mr. Johnson off guard. Mr. Johnson might say, well, I really hadn't thought about a monthly payment. I was just going to write a check. Oh, okay. And then you might explore, oh, is that just coming out of your savings, or did you get a loan, or, where did that come from? And then you maybe determine, okay, the guy's just going to write a check. Great. Who cares? Keep moving on. But in the cases where they say, well, I don't know. I hadn't really thought about it. Say, well, let me ask you this. Is there a monthly price that feels comfortable for your budget? Well, yeah, I guess maybe, I don't know, $300 a month? $300 a month. So what you're saying is $300 a month would be a comfortable monthly payment for you for the windows that you need for your home. Yeah, I think so. Okay, great. Mr. Johnson, I want you to know this. I want you to know that we are going to be able to work within that budget to get you the highest quality windows with our company. Of course, we're a high quality company. Here's whatever our identity is, and we can make that work. And then you start talking about the windows, right? And when you get down to the end of the presentation, you start talking in terms of monthly numbers instead of total numbers. Now, here's the problem that people have with this. They know that if they go the financing route, that they're going to have to pay that finance company some amount of money, right? And they don't want to do it. It might be 6% or something like that. So if they get a $10,000 order, they're going to give $600 to that finance company. They don't want to do it. But here's what they fail to realize, and all of the statistics in the world will back this up, which is that the amount of sale will go up, just like my dental experience. I promise you this. If they would have required full payment at time of service, we would have cut those services down to $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000, depending on what was absolutely critical, and that dentist would have $5,000 or more of unfulfilled dental programs that they had asked us to do. It would be sitting in their file cabinet right now. We wouldn't have done it, or we would have at least put it off, and they would have had to wait to get the money until later. So just think about that. Frame of reference conditioning, okay? Here's a good example of a metal roofing report we've put together before, a permanent roofing solution, the last roof you'll ever buy, talks about, how much it should cost, what the benefits are. I won't go into that in detail. We also, I like to create explainer videos. It's a great way to help take the edge off some of the pricing elements. So if you're not involved with explainer videos, you probably should be. All right, logic versus emotion. This is our next thing we're going to talk about. How much information do people need to make a decision? You know, we've got Spock here, or what you may know him now as Sheldon Cooper. Either way, that's a joke. If you don't get it, then don't worry about it because you just don't get it. But how much information do people need to make? Should we focus on the message on emotional issues or logical issues? And I put this on this webinar because this comes up a lot in traditional marketing philosophy. I don't talk about it much except for right now to make this point. But if you go to a marketing, class, or you take it in college, which I've done, or you read books on the subject, you'll see a lot of people saying things like people make decisions based on emotion, not logic. And so it's sort of this discussion against using logic, and then they'll cite examples of, what is it? The diamond industry, De Beers, and a diamond is forever, and they'll show the stunning diamond, and the woman is so excited, and they're in love, and it's so awesome. And you kind of look at that and say, okay, I don't understand how I'm supposed to use that. Well, maybe we show a picture of a kitchen, and the woman's so excited, and now she's in love with her husband because he got her a kitchen for Christmas. I don't know. Maybe that might work. What about your windows? Oh, well, maybe you need a different emotion. Oh, here's my energy bill, and it's so high, and I'm so upset. And those things are good, but here's what I've found. That anybody that tries to tell you that it's an emotional purchase is only considering half the equation. I would suggest that it's both logic and emotion. And here's what I found. Logic needs to validate the emotional wants in your prospects. So they're going to have an emotional reaction to their windows or to their kitchen or to whatever it is, but they want logic to validate that emotion. Now, if it's a diamond ring and you're getting married, you may not be in the mood to think about, should I spend, $11,000 on a little shiny rock that I could get a fake one that she probably wouldn't even know the difference of for $500. And the logic may not be there because that's a very, emotional situation. But for your windows and your doors and your siding and all this stuff that you sell, I'm telling you, you don't have to go strictly on emotion. Let's give some logic. Logic means explaining why and how, okay? If you can harmonize these, you're going to have a better chance for a sale. So that's just a quick little take on logic versus emotion. All right, now let's talk about don't talk to strangers. Who is a stranger and what should I do? And here's the creepy guy in the 1980s. What is that, like the Chevy K model or whatever it used to be called? And she's running away because she's smart. When a small chance of a really bad outcome exists, you can play it up to your prospects. Okay, so let's talk about not talking to strangers. I've got 6 kids, including 2 daughters, and think back to when my daughters particularly were younger. We live in this world now where we're rightfully so sort of paranoid about things that could happen to our kids, and it's a different world than I grew up in. When I grew up, we'd come home from school, we'd grab an apple, and then we'd go outside, and my mom wouldn't see us for probably 3 hours. Who knows where we were, getting into all kinds of mischief and trouble. But they just never really worried about us getting kidnapped or killed or any kind of negative thing. But think about now, it's a little bit different. And think about a young girl who's maybe like the one in this picture here, 6 or 7 years old. And let's say that for whatever reason, she was walking down the street in a fairly reasonably well-traveled road, not a major thoroughfare, but a reasonably well-traveled road. And she's walking down the sidewalk. If there were 100 cars that passed by during, a given hour or whatever, and saw this girl walking, here's the facts, okay? The facts are that a huge percentage of people would not even notice that girl walking down the street. They would be completely oblivious. And if you asked them later, did you see a girl walking down that street, they would say no because they just weren't paying attention. There's another large percentage that would see that girl walking down the street, and they would notice her, and they would think nothing of it. They would think, if anything, oh, there's a girl walking down the street, whatever. Oh, look, there's our tree, And, it's just something that they saw that they noticed, but they didn't think anything of it. There would be a smaller percentage of people that saw that girl walking down the street and were a little bit concerned for her because they thought it might not be safe for her to be walking by herself down that street. I don't know what the percentage is, but let's say it may be something like, I don't know, 15, 20, 30%. This may include parents that have children that are that age. It may include parents who have had some sort of bad experience with their kids becoming lost or whatever the case might be. Now, there's going to be this smaller segment. I don't know what the percentage is, but there's going to be this small segment of guys, probably not girls, but guys, that see that girl walking down the street and have some sort of a disturbing, unhealthy, unnatural, disgusting thought. Let's just say, for our example, that it's 3 out of 100. 3 out of 100 have a thought, but they don't stop. They just keep driving, but they do have some sort of weird thought. And then there might be that 1 out of 100, or that 1/10 out of 100 that has that creepy thought and actually stops their red K car and tries to say something to that little girl. Okay? Let's say that that's 1/10 out of 100, or stated differently, 1 out of 1,000. Okay? Now, here's why we tell our children not to talk to strangers. It's not because they're extraordinarily likely to be abducted by a stranger that has gross and weird thoughts. It's because in the extremely remote chance that it does happen, the consequence is so thoroughly devastating that you can't ever take the chance in the 999 cases out of 1,000 where nothing devastating happens. Are you following me? Let me give you an extraordinarily contrasting example to help you understand. From a purchasing standpoint, if I walk into, let's say, the grocery store, and I see a new brand of shampoo, and I've never really heard of it, but it looks kind of good, and I buy it, what's the chance that that is going to be an absolutely devastating consequence on me? Maybe I don't like the way it smells. Maybe it's, the wrong color. Maybe it's too expensive and it wasn't worth it. All these things that could potentially go wrong with shampoo, but the consequence is really, really low. Let's say it's a $7 bottle of shampoo. I buy it. It turns out I don't like it. It smells terrible. People comment, wow, your head smells funny. So I throw the bottle away. I'm out $7 in a comment about my hair, but really no damage has been done. You're with me, right? So here's what we have to look at. In your industry, are there situations that are not necessarily extraordinarily likely to actually happen, but if they do happen, the consequence is extremely devastating? Because if that exists, then you have an ability to point at the negative thing that might happen and use it to essentially scare people into trusting you as the one because you're the one that's actually pointing it out, okay? Here's what it says. People will take extreme caution to avoid big problems, even if that chance is very tiny. So we can educate people about potential problems and dangers, supply testimonial and case study evidence. So let's say it is a roofing company. Well, if you're a roofing company, let's say it this way, if you're a roofing customer, out of 100 roofing jobs that were hired by roofing customers, what percentage of those were ripped off by the roofing company in terms of a deposit was given and then the roofer skipped town and never showed up and the deposit was just gone? Now, the reality is that doesn't happen that much. It does happen, but it doesn't happen that much. It might happen, I don't know, 1 or 2 or 5% of the time. It depends on the situation, right? If there's a big hailstorm and you got a bunch of fly-by-night guys coming into town, there might be more propensity to have those types of scam artists in town. But the reality is it could happen. And if it does happen, it's extraordinarily devastating because not only did they steal your money, so now you've got to pay the money again to the next roofer, they also might have purchased roofing materials from a supplier who then might come put a lien on your house because they have a right to put a lien on your house until those roofing materials that were purchased on behalf of your home were paid for. So now you have to pay the roofing supply company a couple $1,000. On top of the couple $1,000 you got to put down on a deposit with the next company, and it's a huge problem, right? Now, again, it's not to say that this happens all the time. It's to say that it could happen. It has happened. So we go out and we find people that it's happened to. And we say, here, let's talk about this. Let's document this. Let's show people, right? And then we put it out there. Hey, be careful. Watch out. This thing could happen. And by simply putting it out there and talking about it, it starts to seem to the prospect to be a real danger that they need to watch out for. And in fact, it is a real danger. So this is what we call don't talk to strangers. If you're in a situation, in an industry where there's shady, shifty sellers, you may want to use this method to play up the dangers so that you can then have more of a rapport and a sort of a consumer advocate position with those folks, okay? Create a confirmation bias when you show them how to overcome and avoid those problems, okay? So let's go to the last principle for today, and for the year for that matter. It's called anticipated reaction. When you write anything, okay, from a marketing standpoint, anticipate what kind of reaction it will cause in John Smith's brain. What kind of feelings will it anchor them to? What kind of pictures will they see in their mind? What kind of questions or objections will it raise? Your next move should preemptively address whatever that next thing is, okay? So this comes from an idea that says we want to, if you want to know why John Smith buys what John Smith buys, you've got to see the world through John Smith's eyes. So if I come out in a radio ad and I'm advertising for a bathroom remodeling company, and I say, we could remodel your bathroom in just one day, okay? That seems like a reasonable thing to say if it's true in your particular case. We have to understand, well, what kind of reaction is that going to spark in John Smith or James Smith's brain, right? Are you with me? And if I say to somebody, we can remodel your bathroom in just one day, that very well might spark a thought of, well, geez, what kind of job are they going to do? If it's so fast, is it going to be high quality? To which our next move would then be to preemptively discuss, well, we can remodel your bathroom in just one day and with an extraordinarily high level of quality and an ability to have warranties and so forth. Now, what I'm not here to do is to go through individual situations and say, here's the situation A and here's then how we react. But I just want you to think through this. If you can anticipate the reaction, okay, this is a great way to deal with all types of human interactions. Teenagers, maybe they are good at this. I was about to say they're not good at this, but maybe they actually are good at this. They just say what they want to say without any regard to the reaction that it's going to cause in their parents or adults or others around them, when in fact I sort of caught myself in the middle and thought, well, maybe they're doing that on purpose. But here's the point. In interpersonal communications, you can start to think about, okay, if I say X, the response will be Y. I see this in teaching a lot. A lot of times teachers will say something that is very generic. It's more of a platitude. And the reaction to the platitude is, so what? Or, okay, I expected that. And then they just keep pushing along without actually having made a point that sinks in and has an impact on the learner. So you just got to think about these things. What is the reaction going to be? If you can start to judge and gauge people's reactions to what you're saying, whether it's a positive or a negative reaction, it's going to help you understand how to construct your arguments in a logical way that's going to flow from one objection to the next, preemptively handling them so that they actually never vocally ask the questions. You just handle them all along the way. So that's the idea of anticipated reaction. It's a pretty neat little principle. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think that's it. I think we're done. We are done. Thanks for being with me today. I told you it'd be a little bit shorter. It actually ended up going about 45 minutes. That's what we're going to do for this year. Like I said, check your calendars within about a week for next year's first quarter webinars. We'll place those on the calendar. Meanwhile, feel free to go back and review our archives. We've got, I think I just checked it before we came on here. I think we've got 113 webinars that are now on our Insider portal. And a lot of those are, not a lot of them, all of them are sorted by categories and keywords. So you can go in there and search and find whatever you're looking for. Also, use our website blog as a resource. We've got, well, as of the end of this year, as of a couple of weeks from now, we'll have posted 115 articles this year, which is a treasure trove of information. So go in there and see what you can find. any kind of marketing problems or questions that you might have, it's all right there for you, okay? So thanks for being a member of the MYM Insider program this year. We sure appreciate your business, and hopefully we can help you out. If there's anything I can do for you or you can need from our company, feel free to reach out to us via email, pick up the phone, and we'd love to hear from you. Thanks so much. Have a Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you next year. Thanks, y'all. Bye now.